New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring. And hello again, dear ones. Reverend Robert with you here.
Rev Z right here.
And this is New Thought Today. Happens every Tuesday here on the New Thought Media Network. Rev Z and I get a chance to take a look at what's going on in the New Thought movement and where we believe it's heading and how you can be supported by this great philosophy and use the principles that it teaches to create the life you truly desire. So we've been away for a couple of weeks, Z. Had a couple of weeks break there for various reasons. Good to be back. Good to see you again.
Yes. Good to be back, as they say, back in the saddle again and riding this horse, so to speak, you know.
Exactly. So Juneteenth and all that went around with that got you very, very busy, I know, and the continuation of that really just rippled through the end of the month for you. So I'm glad we're able to be back together again today. And we do have some great things up our sleeves and in store for you folks in the coming weeks here on New Thought Today. We've got some great guests coming. Reverend Dr. Raymond Anderson's going to be with us sometime this month or early in August. We're still working on finalizing that date as well as others. So we continue to work to bring you what's going on in New Thought. With that, please feel free to drop a comment, hit the share button here, hit the like button, let your friends know what you're doing and hanging out with us today for a little while here. And as we always say, feel free to make those comments and share those comments. If we can and if appropriate, we'll weave them into the conversation we're having. So, all right. Oh, Z, okay, so we're back in the saddle, as you were saying. And
yes.
What we want. The idea today was to talk about this, the idea of the practice of spiritual mind healing. So probably one of the central tenets of the Science of Mind philosophy. Why don't we kick off and give people a quick overview, your definition. What are we talking about when we're talking about spiritual mind healing here today?
Well, I think even before we get there, I think for me, the thing that is the underline or the foundation, if you will, or the backdrop is that part of our being here is to uncover our spiritual nature and create this relationship with this universal presence that goes by many names, as we know, so that we can begin to create this cosmic dance, if you will, of taking from the well and replenishing and renewing ourselves as we move through life. And so when I look at prayer or treatment, I look at it as that way of opening up a conduit or a line of communication where not so much I'm asking or begging, although it may come out like that sometime, depending on where I am, but it's more for the idea of creating a connection first and then opening myself up to receive, and then in that communication to declare a thing, whatever that thing may be, so that I begin to tap into that I am one and we are it and it is us in relationship to the oneness of God. And then we have infinite possibilities of how a thing may be resolved or healed or anything of a such.
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you're saying there, right? I like to look at this as I am simply changing my own mind about whatever condition or belief is in front of me.
Yes.
And I do that so I don't go into it and say, well, this is what I believe and this is what I now want to believe. Some do. But what I have found most effective for me is I go in saying, hey, this is what's going on. And I want to align myself with the knowledge of oneness so that I may listen closely enough to hear the calling of change.
Yes.
And thereby the prayer reveals what it is I ought to be praying about, or what I am
Yeah.
praying about in many ways.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I also like to refer to it sometime as prayer or treatment being the door and the key to understanding my true nature and to activate that God-given stuff that's in me to be present in a moment, all moments ideally, but definitely within a moment of need, if you will say, and that need doesn't have to be some dire need. It could be, God, I need you to help me celebrate. There is no big or small or right or wrong in prayer. So I think sometimes that gets to be a misnomer, that we only have prayer treatments and my spiritual mind healing treatments when we're in trouble or when we're in need. But we can also do that just in celebration or acknowledgement, really, of our relationship with the divine.
Right. Exactly. And I've always remembered that at its simplest, prayer is, quote, the solemn act of asking for help or expressing gratitude and thanks for what has occurred in our lives. And no matter what the object of that prayer is, no matter what the subject of that prayer is, no matter where we're addressing that prayer, I'm always in a place of saying, wow, I'm in gratitude for what is. And while I'm not, quote, begging for help, I am open to the guidance that's going to direct me, that's going to reveal the perfect relationship, or reveal the perfect connection, or reveal the perfect opportunity to move forward in this, what I believe is our creative desire or our desire to create the life we truly desire.
Yeah. Because one thing I think at the outset we should make clear, that spiritual mind healing or spiritual mind treatment or prayer, if it's in that vernacular, is not about mental concentration, right? We're not trying to will anything to happen. We're trying to allow things to happen. And so there is a certain mental attention that we have to give, but that is totally different from the idea of mental concentration, as though we're trying to hold an image and thought, and if we do it long enough and strong enough, boom, it's going to happen. Well, no, that's not what we're doing. We're trying to tap into and awake or activate, which is already there, dormant, right? It's already there. We're trying to put ourselves in alignment with this dormant, for lack of a better word. Energy is like the light switch. We just it's dormant until we cut it on. And then we have to begin to put ourselves in alignment with that and activate it, however that works in this individual activation point for everybody.
Yeah. You just woke something up in me that's really, I think it's really cool and really important. And it's that word magic. So if I think about it for just a brief second, what you described, that concentration of thought, that heavy expenditure of energy and thought, is magic, but it's based on the ego. It's based on what I think is the best. And I'm going to focus everything, and maybe even focus a little finer through a wand of some sort, and zap, I'm going to magically create what I want. That's not what we do. We're doing, right? What we create that focused thought that says, I am open to the infinite. And what's going to best serve humanity? What's going to best serve the organization I'm involved with? Maybe it is what's going to best serve me in my personal life. But even there, it's not me demanding that you become a toad, or right. or that the mops mop the floor themselves. To go back even a little farther in pop culture.
And you know, when we look at the origins of prayer in antiquity and in ancient cultures, you know, sometimes, if not oftentimes, prayer was equated with magic, right?
Confused.
And so that's how we get these incantations and magical words and powerful words, so forth. And you know, in our tradition, we understand the power of the word, but there's something I want to read that I think for me highlights it. It says a prayer or a treatment when it is when you seek to align the presence in us with the presence and power of God, which we accept. A treatment of our mental condition and not realizing the power or presence of the word. Now, that's a lot in my mind to say, but I wanted to read that. But if I was to put that in a little koan, a little nice little package, that would mean you could have nice flowery words and you can use all of the sources across the globe to make that prayer sound really, really good. But if there's no feeling alignment within it, it's just spoken words, and the magic, so you will not take forth. And so in ancient times, they said that those words were magical because that practitioner of that prayer was able to go within, block out as much ego and all of that stuff as possible, and plug directly into the source. It's like plugging into an extension cord as opposed to plugging into the socket. You can plug into the extension cord, but that thing might get hot if it's not the right amps and right voltage. You may have a problem. But if you plug into the source, it'll modulate to what you're trying to do. And that's what we're trying to do here with spiritual mind treatment, in that we want to tap into the source and allow the source to modulate the amount of energy we need to get a thing done.
Yep. I look at, I love that, right? Yes, we got to tap right into that source. And if we add a limiter in between there somehow, an extension cord or another device, something that's pulling some of that power away from the direct avenue to our desire, yes, we're going to lose it. It's not going to happen. I often look at it as a pipe, and the pipe gets dirty. And if the inside of the pipe is clean, that flow is unrestricted and wow, instant manifestations, right? But if I let some doubts into my head, if I let some dirt and some grime into that system, and all of a sudden there's, well, I don't know if I'm good enough, or I don't know if I really should, or I don't know if I'm strong enough to heal cancer, or whatever it may be, then we get less output. We get a less powerful demonstration. We get a little bit of limitation mixed in, and maybe that takes us a little longer to create the demonstration, to feel like we're really there.
Yeah, because you know what we are pulling on, what we're trying to establish in these spiritual mind treatments and prayers and mental healing, and you know it goes by a lot of names, and so sometimes you'll just hear prayer, and we know that when we're saying prayer, we're talking a treatment or a condition where we are connecting. But you know, one thing it says in spiritual mind treatment, the practitioner, whoever it is endeavoring to enter into a consciousness of a state of unity with God. That's what we're looking to establish, this unity. And then from there, and that unity, whether it's realized or not, exists in the past, present, and future. So, you know, as the thing goes, there's no place where God is not, or where God was when something happened. And so we're not dealing with mental suggestions, but a presence, a spiritual presence that that we have access to.
Yes. And that truly the only limit upon that spiritual presence is our own belief.
Yes.
When I was in the ski industry for a long time, in the world of nature, in the world of outdoor sports, in the world of winter sports, we would laugh and sing along and joke that I'm not afraid of anything except myself. I'll drop off of something. I'll go down something. We'll give it a shot. I'm not afraid of anything except myself. Along the way, I started to realize that the deeper truth in that I didn't realize at the time, because that truly is it. The only thing that can get in my way is myself, my own limiting beliefs, my own doubts, my own sense of not enoughness. And all those things are going to be what send me off on a detour, deflect it from the desire. That's what creates the dirt in the pipe, right?
Yes.
Boom. And as I get cleaner and cleaner and cleaner with the idea that I am a divine expression of God, that I have enough of everything and everything necessary shows up in my life as it's necessary, then the doubts dissolve. Now, I've been doing this myself for 20 years. I know you have as well, if not more. And some beliefs take that long to clean up, to change my own mind about it.
Yes.
Because again, you've heard me say this all day, right? Well, the only mind I'm changing is my own.
Right. And an interesting thing too, I think sometimes occurs in this process is this whole idea of whether I'm praying for some material thing, something seen, some matter, or whether I'm praying for some mental state or some thing that's not as visible or tangible as a piece of material. But we go back to the ancient words that say in the beginning it was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then that thing took on flesh, so that Word became flesh. So now, some people have challenges with that, but we know from a scientific point of view that we know the whole basis of physics is the idea that there is an energy that pervades the cosmos. And that out of that energy, that unseen thing, everything that's seen has emerged. Mm-hmm. So the ability to have a word, a field, and an idea that is spoken or put forth in an invisibleness, if you will, that allows something to emerge out of it that wasn't seen henceforth, is what the whole universe is doing. And so when we can get our head around that and stop this whole idea that science and religion, if you will, or science and spirituality are fighting, they're one and the same thing. They're two sides of the same coin. And so when we can understand that, our prayers are better, our treatments are better, everything in life is better, because we understand the process and the flow of how things take place.
I love that you bring that up, because I have seen and heard people that use the idea that New Thought is, quote, scientific, have used that as an accusation, as a criticism that we're not truly scientific. We don't actually follow the scientific process, and that we don't actually write papers that are blind study, and that we're not really scientists. Hey, okay, I can hear that criticism if that's where you want to go. But what I believe is we are all only just scientists of our own life. And if this philosophy, if any one little piece of this philosophy in any way helps you to get cleaner about your life, to get more aligned in your life, to experiment with how you create your life, if any one piece of this in any way helps you to create the life you truly desire, to create something better in your life, that to me is close enough. It's using the process of repeating the experiment. And you're going to go out and you're going to do it again and again and again, because once there's that moment, right? The first time you as an individual come to that moment and say, wow, this prayer stuff really works.
Yeah.
You've created a new experience in your life. You've created a new belief in your life. And now you're ready to demonstrate and create even more powerfully through your life.
Well, and that's, that's like the story, if you will, I've heard, or the statement that Ernest Holmes made about. He says, "Well, I'm no mechanic, but I know there's a science and law, and of mechanics and how cars work, and I don't need necessarily to know how that. All I need to know is that I got gas, oil, and a key." And I have faith because of the work that someone else has done and the example of what happens when you use these things. So I get in the car and I turn the key with complete confidence that the car's going to work.
Right.
And so that's the point that we need to step into prayer. We've, whether it's worked for us successfully or not, or whether we kind of halfway believe it or not, there are definitely experiences of where it has worked. And if it works for one, it'll work for all.
Right. This is another great example. Recently, I got a vehicle that's in the shop waiting to be diagnosed today. The turbo isn't working, and it's covered by a warranty and all that, and it'll get fixed. But the point is, every day I got in that car, turned it on whenever we needed it, no problem. Exactly what you're saying. And one day, it didn't quite work the way it's always worked. And that made me question, wait a minute, what's going on here? This ain't working the way it was working yesterday. Or last time I remember driving, it wasn't working. Then the next day, it seemed to work again. Then the day after that, it seemed not work again. That was the red flag. That was the warning that said, okay, something has changed, and we got to figure out what that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, in the case of my turbo, we don't really know yet, but we will. In the case of in the case of our lives, I want us to come from that place where we expect life to work, where we have full, absolute expectation that the prayer will be demonstrated and answered. And then when it isn't, that's the warning sign that something's a little bit amiss. And if it doesn't do that 2 days in a row, then I've got to start paying attention to where did I allow a limiting belief to creep into my experience.
Right. And of course, there's always that great saying that we have to hold dearly and close to our heart. There is no greater small or bigger small in the eyes of God, right? The movement of energy is the movement of energy, whether it's the energy to light a light bulb or to send a space shuttle to the moon, right?
Yep.
So we have to understand that even though we may not understand all the ins and outs of what caused that turbo to work, somebody does. And somebody has a solution. And if they can't fix that one, they'll replace it with another one. So that's the environment we live in.
And I don't have to know why it works, and I don't have to know why it's not working. I just got to get it to the people that can understand why it's not working.
Yes.
And in our work, well, that's ministers and practitioners, folks, right? When things aren't working, I don't sit around going, well, I guess I got to learn how to diagnose a turbo, how to diagnose this engine, and then figure out where to borrow the tools and who might have a garage. And hey, anybody know how to use these things? No, we turn to a professional and say, hey, this ain't working.
Right.
So sometimes in the case of this vehicle, I got to wait a couple of weeks for an expert to be available to work it into their schedule. In our lives, hey folks, we got practitioners, ministers that are available. If you look hard and far enough, you're going to find somebody available right now that will sit with you and use these spiritual practices of spiritual mind healing to support you in coming to that greater realization of your life as well.
And you made me think about something there when we're talking about the mechanic and we, because of the law of evolution and the way things unfold, I don't need to know everything because it will be revealed in time, right? Now, because we know spirit, we know God, we know the divine is timeless, and we are operating as spiritual beings, which are timeless, in this physical body, which is finite. We sometimes get caught up in the timeliness, if you will, in the answering of that prayer. right?
Yep.
In the fixing of that turbo, right? But the thing to remember is there's the verse in the song that we can all know everything without ever knowing how. It's in every one of us, right? But there's a surrendering, there's a commitment, there's allowing others to step in sometime and be that conduit, or actually be that miracle, if you will, to make things happen. And this is what we try to do in this teaching is we try to put these concepts and ideas in practical, understandable stories, metaphors, whatever it takes for you to get a sense of that feeling. Because once you get if I tell you your turbo's broke and we're gonna send it to you got a feeling for what that looks like, what that sounds, because everybody's had some kind of trouble with their car if you own one, right? And
Yep.
so that same thing applies to prayer, to spiritual mind treatment. It's the same analogy that you can put it in. And once you can do that, you can get that visceral feeling and you say, okay, when I tap into that when I'm praying, I know we're cooking with gas, as they say now.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Driving with turbos now. Folks, you're watching New Thought today. I'm Rev BRZ. This is my dear brother, Rev Sekou, and we get together every every Tuesday at 2 o'clock Mountain Time and invest about an hour of our day looking at what's going on in New Thought, how to better utilize and understand this philosophy, how to utilize the practices of this philosophy. And today we're taking a bigger, deeper dive into spiritual mind healing. And the practice of what often becomes referred to as prayer. And, it's one of those things. I just have that way early training. And it wasn't like I was very religious as a kid. I wasn't. But from the earliest get-go, my conditioning, my social programming always taught me that prayer was begging and beseeching. Was that begging of please, please, please bless me, and if I was good enough, and if I could demonstrate my worth, and if I wore the right white colored clothing and said my prayers religiously, then maybe, just maybe, someday my prayers might be answered. Yeah. And it took a long time to get over that programming. New Thought teaches us that truly the in many ways the answer to the prayer is in the act of the prayer itself. And I think we've been talking about that quite a bit here today so far, that we've got to get into it. We got to get to that place of saying there's no limit to what good I may experience when I remove my own self-limiting beliefs from the equation.
Yeah. And I would submit that if we go back to the origin of this whole idea of prayer, no matter what the tradition, no matter what the time period, I would submit that somehow somebody skipped a lesson you go to school and you skip school, or you got a doctor's appointment, whatever, on Thursday, and you get ready for the quiz on Friday, and you miss some important pieces. And you got almost the answer, but a little something is missing. Not that your stuff is wrong, but something's missing. And so when we look at all of the rituals and the prompt and circumstances that different traditions have around prayer, those things are set up, I believe, and from my study, to help you create that feeling, to generate that openness, to when you burn incense, or when you sit and do breath work, or when you do meditation, if you do it in a prescribed way, there's a physical feeling difference that you feel within yourself, and so now you've opened up a space. You've allowed that ritual to create a more open container, a more aware container to make the prayer. But let's be clear, the prayer is different from the container that you may be using to hold that prayer, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. The prayer itself is something much different. And I was speaking about this morning in my 10 o'clock program in the Growing Edge, that all of the spiritual practices in one way or another have a primary similar component in the calling to listen, to transcend what I believe is in the highest and the best, and listen for the guidance that leads me to the highest and the best.
Yes.
And I've often said that all of the work we do is a revelatory process. We are constantly revealing a greater expression of the divine, constantly revealing a more expanded experience of the divine, because we're constantly expanding our own consciousness. Or not, yeah. And then you get stuck where you are. Right? Most of us are doing this.
Yeah. And I think part of that because I know for myself, and I can only speak for myself, is that whole idea that things are first created in the invisible before they're created in the visible. And so if I'm not grounded enough, if I'm not patient enough, and I know some people say, oh, that's all you religious people talk about is patience. Well, it is what it is. I mean, you want to have a child, it ain't finna happen tomorrow, even if you go out and try and adopt one that's already here. So there's a certain amount of patience, if you will, or understanding of allowing the process to work that we have to lean into. And then when we're able to do that, now, we can lean into a different understanding of what prayer is. And again, with all spiritual practices, I believe, this whole idea of recognizing that there is a power, that power created everything from itself, as all of the stories will attest to, whether they say there was one God or many gods. At some point, the gods or God created everything from their God stuff. And so when we can get in tune with that recognition and the unification between the thing itself and us, and then we can reconcile any differences to create a realization of who and what we are, all prayer will work.
Yeah. It's you're hitting into so many of the places that I love to teach about and that I love to speak about, that deep sense of recognizing that the power, the presence, and the intelligence is flowing through and operating as my life. And as I said earlier, the only thing that can divert that can dam that flow of good is myself. And every time I spend even a moment of recognizing, even a brief glimpse of, oh, there too is God. Oh, here too is God. Oh, yeah, I don't know. I like that thought, but that was God too. Right? That was the reminder too, that every day, day by day by day, and for me, it's been the drop of, it's how you make a bucket of muddy water clean. Drop by drop. And every day you add another drop of clean liquid, and a clean liquid, and a clean liquid. And eventually we settle out all those disbeliefs. We allow all those limiting beliefs to settle out. So we're left with that clear picture of, oh, hey, here, this is the magnificence of what is possible. And I'm still going to transcend what I think I should be doing.
Well, and again, that so clearly speaks to the process, right? I got a bucket of dirty water. I'm dropping one drop at a time, but over time, throughout the process and the magnitude of the drop, the water will change its consistency faster or slower, depending on what we're putting in. Same thing with the prayer. And then the other piece is that I think there is no limit, right? I mean, that's what that speaks to. One would say one drop of water is not going to change. Yeah, but one drop every day, every hour, every minute, or whatever it is, will change it. There is no limitation. And so we don't begin, when we put limitations on ourselves or the power that is, we begin to miss something. You know, I don't know if you saw this the other day, Robert, but we've been using the car metaphor, so I'm gonna just stick with it. They had the flying car the other day. If you go to CNET and look up flying car, they had a car that flew rather for 35 minutes at an altitude of about 8,200 feet, landed, wings fold up, prop came in, and then that thing drove off. Right now,
oh, I want one.
yes. Go look at that. Go to CNET. I think they had one of the better videos of it, of the flying car. And so, if someone had just put a limitation on the car and said no, it can only be on the ground,
right?
That piece of equipment, rather, that piece of magnificence would never have come about. But whoever came up with that, they put no limitations on spirit. They put no limit on imagination and unification of the idea and the mechanics and the science that we knew. And they allowed the law of two different things to come together, the law of aerodynamics and the law of motion in terms of engines and cars. And boom, now we've allowed two laws to come together to create something totally different.
Yeah. Science fiction becoming science fact.
Yes.
How many of us were brought up with the image of George Jetson getting out of his flying car and it folding up into his briefcase? Well, all right, maybe we're not all the way down to the size of a briefcase yet. But many of us never thought we'd have communicators on our wrists either. Thank you, Dick Tracy. Right? So there have been these visionaries all the way along in popular culture that there's always been someone, some aspect of the divine saying, look, you're not here yet, but this is possible.
Yep.
And now we're going to come back to your favorite, your word from earlier. We got to be patient. We've had the vision of flying cars for decades and decades. We had to be patient. We had to continue to believe it was possible. We had to stay in the process of saying, yes, this can happen. And then the form, in this case, the technology, the whatever, the hardware, the advances in metallurgy and metal composition that make it light enough for a car to fly, all the things that had to come into existence in order for this to happen, none of it's possible unless there's that creative spark of an idea that gets it all rolling. Thank you, George.
Which speaks to the fact that we have to turn away, as we always say, we have to turn away from the condition. We have to turn away from the limited thinking and transcend it, because we know spirit has no time blocker. It has no, it transcends all time. And so when we allow that prayer, that thought, that idea to be released into a invisible substance that takes it and finds the things that are congruent with it to make it so, and so when we can transcend time and turn away from any limiting conditions, it allows God to put into motion these powers and presence and laws that are formless and create stuff that we see as a result, whether it's just experience stuff or actual physical stuff that we hold in our hand.
Yep. This brings us right back to the secret and the law of attraction, right?
Yes.
Because far too many people teach that the law of attraction is about accumulating stuff, attracting stuff or experiences or people into our lives. When really from my perspective, what it is it's a byproduct, it's a demonstration of our receptivity, of our openness to saying there is this grand idea coming through. I have no idea what part I'm to play in it, where I'm supposed to be a part, and all this, and just being open to the belief that, yes, this can happen. If I use the principles, if I stay in the listening, if I stay patient, if I use all of this, whatever that big idea might be, then the pieces necessary to make that happen will show up in my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't, whoever, right, the person inventing the flying car didn't have I'm sure it doesn't have a fully formed idea, but somewhere along the line there is that, aha moment that, whoa, we need a new form of metal. Who knows a metallurgist? Who
Yes.
knows some? And it is through our willingness to stay open that we attract into our lives what's necessary to fulfill the dreams and the desires we have. Not that I need a car, so let me go attract a car.
And to that exact point, you can almost see it in your mind's eye that someone watched that 3-minute video and said, and their specialty is wings. They've been studying wings from bumblebees and birds and butterflies. They understand this whole thing about wings and aerodynamics. And they're looking at that thing and saying, that's a great wing. But if we do this little tweak to that, it's going to make it do X better or Y better, right? Or the same thing about some other aspect of that, which speaks, one, to the unity of all things, right? And then that prayer would be answered, whether it was spoken or unspoken, right?
Yep.
Because if we strike the feeling tone, the prayer is already released. We don't have to say anything. Yeah. The energy is released, and it's just changing forms. And so now we're at this point to where we can say yes to life, in that life is prime. I know it exists. I know it's ever unfolding. It's healing. It's advancing. We have to lean into that and make it so, as the Star Trek folk would say, make it so.
Make it so, number one. Yes, one of my favorite lines ever. Make it so, number one. Right? And here's the thing. So if you take that idea and you analyze it a little bit, Picard never had the idea. It was never his idea. It was always somebody else, right? It was always the first mate. That somebody would bring the idea to the captain, and the captain would say, "Make it so." Yeah, go for it. Yes, yes, because the nature of the universe has to be to say yes and provide us with what's necessary to complete the mighty missions we've all been sent here to complete.
Yeah. And of course, that just, when you talk about Picard, that just brings to mind, one of my favorite things, which is the Celestine Prophecy, a book that came out in the late 80s, late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around there. But there's a principle in there that talks about that, and they demonstrate it by, there's a group of people sitting around having a conversation, and one person takes it as far as it can go to its logical conclusion for themselves, and whoever in the group knows that they're the next pickup point from where I stopped off. And that's what we're talking about here too. When we talk about the unity, when we look at the unity of anything, the unity of our bodies, there are certain things that the heart will do up to a point to where it has to surrender and allow the lungs to do it, and then allows the lymph nodes to do it, or the elimination or respiratory, or all these different systems. There's a logical conclusion to any event. And that's what we're looking for when we're praying. We're looking, because we have these 5 steps that we go through, right? You have the recognition that there is a God, that there is nothing else but God, and that of this invisible stuff was made, that we are unified and we are it and it is us. And when we get to that point, now we're at the point to where we say, okay, now I know there's a one thing that's unity. I've recognized and realized and unified myself. Now I can realize anything. And then from there, we give thanks. We give thanks. For me, I give thanks primarily for knowing that I have that opportunity to understand that there's a unification and a realization and a unification and a recognition of God to make all this stuff happen. And then I let it go. I let the physics, or the magic, if you will, take its place and do its thing.
Yes. We let the one do its thing. There are times, folks, when, for me at least, and it takes, we get it, right? That patience word we know can trigger a lot of people, but it takes the repetition. It takes the time to really sink into it. It takes the commitment and the dedication to say, even though I don't feel like it today, I'm going to do my practice. Or even though it would be easier to just roll over or have another cup of tea, or I'm going to do my practice. I'm going to stay invested in creating a consciousness, creating a vibration within myself that is open, listening, receptive, all the things we've talked about. Not attracting what we think, not dictating what we think, not mandating that it's going to be this way because I saw it in a vision or I heard it in a prayer. Or all of our practices, I believe, are designed to open us to a greater sense of receptivity to a truth that is already existent in the mind of God and seeking to express itself through me, through you, through all of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can be a lot of fun getting there.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It can be a lot of fun.
Because you just made me think about my exercise program at the moment. Right now it's yeah, okay, I'm not even gonna go there. But I do know in terms of practice, if I've set myself up to do a 45-minute workout and today I don't feel like it for whatever reason, because I'm making an excuse or I really have something that's in the way,
Yep.
The more consistent thing to do is I can't do 45, but I can do 10. I can do 15, right? To keep that energy flowing, to keep that faucet open so that we allow it to not get stagnant, because we know the mind, which looks at things in a dual way, will begin to automatically set up a counterpoint to that point. Yeah. And it said, you don't need to do that. Oh, you did it yesterday. You can do it 2 days from now. You can do it a week from now. And then 5 months later, you're like, ooh, I should have did them 15 minutes.
I should have done them 15 minutes. I spoke about this earlier today, too. Many people are probably familiar with this wonderful little book, The Abundance Book by John Randolph Price. And he's got this great practice. It's a journaling practice. There's 10 statements. When you follow these statements and you really give yourself to them, there's no question that they're each individually a prayer. Some of them are a little incomplete. They're parts of the and the whole idea is that you've got to do 40 days. There's 10 statements. You do each statement 4 times. So you go 1 through 10 and then again and again and again. I just did day 360. So I'm less than half of a section away from a full year of doing this. Has my life miraculously changed, and do I have thousands and thousands of dollars coming into my life because I've been doing this practice? Not necessarily. Maybe part of it, I know part of it's the consciousness. Am I here? Yes. Are my finances moving forward? Yes. Am I feeling more abundant? Yes. And here's the thing, I feel better about myself because I just completed a goal. I just completed an objective to say how off. And this is one of those penalizing practices where if you miss a day, you're supposed to go back to the beginning. Right? Have I missed a day? Yeah. Did I go back to the beginning? No. Did I pick up and do double duty the next day? Yes. And did I recommit to continuing day to day to day? And I'm at a point where I know these statements pretty much back to back, front to back, and by heart. And each time I add to the prayer, each time I complete the journaling process, I write out what he wrote, and then I fill the rest of the page with what's real for me in that moment. Day by day, I can measure a depth of consciousness like never before. Yeah. That to me is the use of science in a creative endeavor.
And again, from my mind, what I'm hearing you say, it helps us. These kinds of practices help us put things in perspective. One, but I think more importantly, it keeps us aware that the more I do something, the better I get. So
Yeah.
if you don't have a prayer practice or a spiritual mind treatment practice, start one. And if you can't do it every day, do it every Monday, and then eventually add Tuesday. And if you're doing it for 5 minutes, eventually kick it up to 7 minutes or whatever it is. Or if you find out 7 is too much, kick that thing back down to 4, because we want you to do the practice, not make an excuse for not doing it. And so, because everybody's different, you find your way, you find your practice, and then you lean on it.
Yep. It's real easy to skip your workout on the 4th of July weekend. I get it. I'm with you, right? I can justify Z and the excuses he created to not do his work, to not do the work that he says he's committed to. And we all do that, right, folks? We will find those that will tell, oh, it's okay. Nope. Get rid of that guy. Get the guy that's going to say, wait, whoa, hold on. You still got a half an hour. We got time for a workout before the day is over. Hey, we still got time. And I'll tell you, there have been nights where I write in that journal at 11:30 and I'm writing out my daily thing, because I get more and more committed to make sure it happens.
Right. And that I was chuckling there, because we all have those people say, you deserve to take a day off. You've been working hard. Well, yeah, but no, I don't think so. Because that just sets up a situation that if I don't become very careful, it becomes a stumbling block as opposed to a stepping stone.
Yep, exactly. I deserve just one more brownie. I deserve just one more beer. I deserve just one more hour of sleeping in. Yes.
And now I wake up frantic.
Exactly. So, okay, folks. So what's all this got to do with healing anyway? Well, we trust that in the past 50 some odd minutes or so here, what you have heard is that we all have the power. Each and every one of us has has the ability to use the one infinite power to direct our own beliefs, to change our beliefs, change our consciousness, and thereby change the conditions, the opportunities, the experiences of our lives. The healing happens when we let go of limiting beliefs. The healing happens when we let go of thinking we're not enough, or maybe we're too much for some people, or that we're a little overweight, or we're too skinny, or we're too this or too that, or too blah, 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 blah. The healing, I believe, happens as we listen more deeply and open ourselves to allowing ourselves to be an expression of the divine. Not to telling the divine what it is we got to have, what we need, or who's going to do the work, or what color the car needs to be, but being open to the grander values that those things represent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Z, final thoughts before we wrap?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you hit it, I think, dead on the head, is that, at the end of the day, I think, we have to be invested in a practice, whatever that practice is. And of course, right now we're talking about prayer. And as you become more invested, your results continues to increase. It's just like invested in the stock market. You put your money in the stock market, some things go up, some things go down. But if you're doing it right and you're paying attention, over time, your assets will increase. And in this way, we're saying, if you invest this time in God and in yourself and connecting that conduit and allowing that two-way flow to happen, right? For electricity to happen, you need a positive and a negative to make it work. And when you can do that and allow those things to flow freely, boom, results, investments grow, prayer consciousness grows, and our life continues to grow and become more open to who and what we truly are.
Life is a revelation.
Yes.
And it's happening as you. That's the truth, folks. All right, we're going to get out of here at this point. This is New Thought Today. It happens every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, 2 to 3 o'clock on the Mountain Time Zone. Please feel free, hit that share button, hit that like button. Let your friends know what we're doing. Invite a friend to check out the archives. You can catch all of our programming over on our YouTube channel. And please, we would love your subscription over on our YouTube channel. All of our different programmings or playlists over there, so you can binge watch any of our shows, catch up the past episodes, see the rebroadcast, and please stay in touch on Facebook to know when upcoming episodes. So we're going to be back again live next week. We've got a number of new episodes coming your way, and I don't think I have any vacations planned, so we should be here every Tuesday for you. Until next time, folks, peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings.